TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. IDF asserts that Hamas is losing its grip over the population in Gaza. The United States warns Iran must accept no nuclear enrichment or face the consequences. Iran Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei asserts that Israel will soon be annihilated. The IDF is expanding its operational achievement throughout the Gaza Strip, eliminating dozens of Hamas terror operatives over the past 24 hours alone. Regrettably, the war comes at a heavy cost, with the IDF spokesperson's unit confirming the 27-year-old Master Sergeant in Reserve, Alon Farkas, fell during combat in the northern Gaza Strip, while 3 additional troops, including First Sergeant Lior Steinberg, First Sergeant Ofer Barhana, and First Sergeant Omer von Gelder, were killed from an IED explosion a day prior. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu relayed his condolences to the families of the 3 troops who were killed, asserting that their sacrifice was not in vain.
I would like to express deep sorrow for the fall of First Sergeant Lior Steinberg, First Sergeant Ofer Barhana, and First Sergeant Omer van Gelder. May their memory be blessed, and may God avenge their blood. I want to hug their families and tell them, your precious sons did not fall in vain. They fell in a just war like no other, in a war in which we will defeat Hamas, release all of our hostages, and ensure that Gaza will no longer pose a threat to Israel. We are making measured progress to prevent or reduce as much as possible the fall of our soldiers. But unfortunately, there are no free wars, and the price you pay, the price that the people of Israel pay, is heavy, and sometimes it seems unbearable. But we will achieve the goals of the war, all of them, without exception.
IDF spokesman Brigadier General Effi Defrin made an address last night, during the course of which he emphasized that the IDF's operations are fully aligned with Jerusalem's objectives, the return of our hostages, and the decisive defeat of Hamas.
Over the past week, the IDF has launched precise activities throughout the Gaza Strip as part of Operation Gideon's Chariots, targeting Hamas infrastructure both above and below ground, hidden deliberately in civilian areas. Efforts are constantly being made to avoid harm to Gazan civilians, while dozens of terrorists are being successfully eliminated. Our operations are fully aligned with our objectives, the return of our hostages, and the decisive defeat of Hamas.
General Defrin continued by stressing that Hamas is losing its grip on the population in Gaza.
We are delivering major setbacks to Hamas and pushing the terrorist organization closer to collapse. As a result of our military operations and the pressure we are applying, Hamas is losing its grip on the population in Gaza and its control over humanitarian aid. Over the past week, designated distribution centers were opened in southern Gaza to provide aid directly to the civilian population. Tens of thousands of food packages are being distributed daily by a US-based civilian company. This initiative is proving effective. Gazan residents are coming to the distribution centers to receive the aid.
The IDF spokesman underscored further the Gazan population's growing resentment of Hamas, which is apparent to include a substantive number of Gazans seeking to end Hamas's rule. Moreover, General Defrin also seized the opportunity to deplore the United Nations, which refuses to distribute humanitarian aid for the purpose of alleviating the suffering of the civilian population.
The civilian population of Gaza understands that Hamas is not taking care of them. On the contrary, Hamas is actively trying to prevent them from receiving the aid. Hamas has responded to this aid initiative with violence, in attempts to sabotage the delivery of aid and even send gunmen to fire at civilians in the aid distribution centers. We operate nearby and do whatever is necessary to ensure that the aid does not fall into the hands of Hamas. In addition, dozens of humanitarian aid trucks have been entering daily through the Kerem Shalom crossing. But this aid is not being collected or distributed. Over 450 trucks are waiting in the area of the Kerem Shalom crossing, ready for collection and distribution. The aid is waiting. The residents of the Gaza Strip are waiting. The organization responsible for the distribution is not acting.
Amid Hamas reports of mass shootings that claimed the lives of dozens of Palestinians, the IDF spokesman underscored that the allegations against the Israeli military were entirely false.
According to initial findings, the IDF did not fire at civilians within the aid distribution centers. Any claims to the contrary are entirely false, harm our forces, and serve Hamas propaganda. Hamas is spreading false information, which is unfortunately being echoed by the international media without any verification.
Meanwhile, a journalist attending the White House briefing asked Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt whether the United States could confirm whether the IDF had in fact shot and killed Palestinian civilians seeking humanitarian aid at the American distribution centers.
The administration is aware of those reports, and we are currently looking into the veracity of them because, unfortunately, unlike some in the media, we don't take the word of Hamas with total truth. We like to look into it when they speak. Unlike the BBC, who had multiple headlines, they wrote, "Israeli tank kills 26, Israeli tank kills 21, Israeli gunfire kills 31, Red Cross says 21 people were killed in an aid incident," and then, oh wait, they had to correct and take down their entire story, saying we reviewed the footage and couldn't find any evidence of anything. Oh. Okay, so we're going to look into reports before we confirm them from this podium or before we take action, and I suggest that journalists who actually care about truth do the same to reduce the amount of misinformation that's going around the globe on this front.
Press Secretary Leavitt was further asked about the nuclear negotiations between the United States and Iran, whether reports claiming the Trump administration was willing to allow Iran to maintain low levels of enrichment, which is similar to the Obama administration's 2015 nuclear agreement.
The president made his position very clear on Truth Social last night. In fact, it couldn't be any more clear, and I would reiterate that's his position. Special Envoy Witkoff sent a very detailed and acceptable proposal to the Iranian regime that the president hopes they will accept, and if not, they will face grave consequences, as the president himself has reiterated.
President Donald Trump wrote on his Truth Social account, quote, "The OTAN should have stopped Iran a long time ago from enriching. Under our potential agreement, we will not allow any enrichment of uranium." And while President Trump's unequivocal position on enrichment stands in complete contrast to the position of the Ayatollah regime's supreme leader Ali Khamenei, the American leader remains convinced that Iran would choose to avoid the consequences of rejecting his proposed deal.
And I think we have a chance of making a deal with Iran also. They don't want to be blown up. They would rather make a deal. And I think that could happen in the not too distant future. That would be a great thing if we could have a deal without bombs being dropped all over the Middle East. That would be a very good thing. They can't have a nuclear weapon. We want them to be safe. We want them to have a very, very successful nation. Let it be a great nation, but we can't have that. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. And I think we're fairly close to a deal with Iran.
The response to President Trump's adamant position, which essentially guarantees obstructing Iran's path to a nuclear weapon, came earlier today when Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, in a speech to his followers and RGC officials, emphasized that the proposed agreement was not in Iran's interest.
The first thing we say to the American and other parties is, what business do you have in this? Why do you interfere in whether Iran should have enrichment or not? What's it to you? The rude and arrogant leaders of America repeat this demand in various ways. The proposal that the Americans have presented is 100% against our interests.
Ayatollah Khamenei, whose followers intermittently chanted death to America, death to Israel, and death to England, among others, during his 45-minute speech, continued by warning Muslim nations from normalizing relations with the State of Israel. Interestingly enough, Ayatollah Khamenei insinuated that Arab nations sought out relations with Israel over fear of Iran's proactive expansionist activities. Nevertheless, the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic insisted that their hopes to achieve security by relying on the Zionist regime was not viable, since Khamenei maintains his conviction that the State of Israel would soon be eradicated.
They cannot achieve security by relying on the Zionist regime, because that regime, the Zionist regime, by God's definite decree, is collapsing, and Allah willing, it won't last much longer.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. As ever, it is important to highlight that TV7 Israel is a non-profit ministry with our productions 100% reliant on donations, and therefore if you're blessed by the content of our programs, I would like to encourage you to donate. You can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. Moreover, I'd like to encourage you, pray for the hostages who've now endured 607 days in Hamas captivity. Pray also for the peace of Jerusalem and the salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Essen wishing you an Erev Mevorach, and God willing, we'll see you during our next update. Until then, Shalom from Jerusalem.